Hey everyone, and welcome to Hooked on Needles and Crafts. Today we're going to be doing another itty bitty knit kit that I got from Five Below. For my returning subscribers, thank you so much for tuning in. And for my new viewers, please consider subscribing, share, hit that like button, leave a comment below, and click on that notification bell for future videos. So today, you guys, we are back with the itty bitty knit kits. I hope everyone had a really good holiday if they celebrate Thanksgiving. I had been doing a bunch of Wicked kits that I think went very well. And now we're back to itty bitty knit kits. So I have some requests here. I know there's a bunch of winter itty bitty knit kit requests. I don't have those delivered yet, so we're just gonna have to wait a little bit longer for that. But anyway, let's do Minty Cocoa today. These are going to be, the next three itty bitty knit kits are gonna be ornaments. So I don't know if anybody had caught that, but I thought these were really cute. So let's see how it goes knitting them. In this box, we are going to be receiving stuffing, knitting needles, plastic sewing needle, a bunch of spools of yarn, and then some felt stickers or felt pieces. I'm not sure if that's a sticker or not. Anyways, let's get straight into this. So these videos are only a supplement to the kit. I won't be showing any instructions or any specifics like that due to copyright. So if you would like to do this kit, I highly recommend that you either go to a Five Below or go on their website. They have these there. And I've actually, someone usually get comments on how fast I'm going. Someone actually said how slow I'm going. But if you need to change the speed on the video, click on the gear button in the corner. There's playback options to go fast or slow. If you don't need to hear me talk, you can lower the volume on your device and click on the CC closed caption button. So here we have some pink, some white, and some green. And in our pouch, we have our stuffing that I'm going to be putting back so it doesn't get dirty. And then we have our knitting needles. We have our felt stickers. So I'm going to put this back so it doesn't get dirty. And then we have our sewing needle that I'm going to put in here so we don't lose it. We can keep this closed until we need the contents inside. Alright. And then here are the instructions. These instructions are pretty nice. They have illustrations and text. They also include a ruler, so you don't have to go out and get one. Now, I'm going to be doing this video the way that I'm going to do it. If you want to go do it the way the booklet says, then by all means go ahead and do that. I just try to break down easy for me to use. So hopefully this video will be helpful. Alright, so let's get straight into this. Alright, looks like we're going to have a fun time with this one. So for the first rectangle, we're going to be alternating green and pink. So I'm going to have to take a look at which color we're going to be using first. And it seems like we're going to be using the mint. I guess I called this green. I don't know. Mint, my bad. And, you know, there's no real nice way to go about this one. You just gotta unravel the knot and hope for the best, I guess. Okay. You can, roll it into a ball, or if you have a contraption that makes, dispensing the yarn easier, but I'm just gonna do it this way, so bear with me. And we're gonna get straight on into casting on some stitches. We're gonna first start with a slip knot, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Alright, so you want to keep your feeder yarn all this away up to the side here. Then we have our tail. What I'm going to do real quick is measure with the ruler in the instructional booklet the length of tail that the first rectangle is asking for. So I'll be right back. Don't hit the camera. Alright, so I measured out my tail. This is the length that we need. I'm going to put this length down away from the project, so off to the table on my end, however you're working, just as long as it's down. Alright, the feeder yarn you want to keep up and out of the way. Alright, so we're going to take our middle and ring finger and you're going to hold the yarn like this. Keep this tight. This is going to be the mark of your tail and you don't want to lose that. Alright, we're not going to be using any of this at all for the project until we sew things together. So take your two fingers, we're going to lift up the mint yarn and we're going to turn it down to create this loop. Then we're going to take the ring finger and index and we're going to grab the yarn and you're going to pull it through the loop like that. So you have this huge knot, right? So what we have to do is make this knot small and we have to make it towards the thumb. So what we're going to do is pull this top piece right here. We're not going to pull that one, we're going to pull this one. And as we're pulling, we're going to push the knot towards the thumb. So keep pulling this in. Alright, and then your knot is going to get to a point where you can't pull it anymore because the knot is either butt up against your thumb or it's too tight to pull any more yarn. So at this point now, we're going to take the tail and we're going to pull it out just a little bit more to make that knot nice and tight. Now I'm not pulling real hard, I'm just pulling hard enough to see that knot get snug. But now we have this huge loop, right? So what we're going to do is hold the knot. Alright, we're going to take our feeder yarn and the feeder yarn is attached to the spool. You want to take the feeder yarn and you want to pull it to where your loop here gets small enough to fit 2 knitting needles in there, like that. Okay, this is the tail. Leave the tail down and away. I'm going to slip in the 2 needles and then you can tighten it up if there's a little bit of slack, right? And then you can collect your feeder yarn around your finger. Okay, and we can begin. Alright, so for just a side note, you want to keep your tail down always. You want to keep your feeder yarn either around your finger or you want to keep it up and away. Alright, so for this cast on with the slip knot, we're going to get into our knit stitch position. So our knit stitch position is taking these 2 needles and crossing them in an X. Okay, but you want your right needle to be in the back, you want your left needle to be on top. So left on top, right on the bottom. And then you're going to want your feeder yarn in the back. Okay, so to start, we're going to take our feeder yarn and we're going to wrap it around our right needle. And we're going to go counterclockwise. So back to front and down. You're going to hear or feel it snap. You want to pull it all the way down. Okay, and you want to get it into this little crevice here. So one tip is that you want to always have your needles touching. If we look down on this, you can see there's that one spot that's touching. You always want to keep it touching so you don't lose your yarn. If this was open, the yarn would slip out, but it's staying nice and snug right here. Then what we're going to do is we're going to slide our left needle down the right needle over the point and down its back. And this is going to force the feeder yarn through this loop. So again, always maintain contact so we don't lose the yarn, and we want to slide the left needle down the right needle over the tip, down its back, and as you see, it's forcing the feeder yarn through that loop, creating a new stitch. So from here, we basically have to transfer this loop over to the left needle. And how you do that is you take your left needle and you stick it through that loop and you just lift it off the right. So now you have 2 stitches on your needle. Okay, so now let's do this again. Stick your needle into the new stitch like this, okay? You want to get into your knit stitch position, so X your needles, but you want your right needle to be in the back, you want your left needle to be on top, and then you want your feeder yarn in the back. So then what we're going to do is wrap around the right needle, and we're going to go counterclockwise from back to forward and down. You're going to feel or hear it snap. And that's because we're going to keep our needles touching always. Now our yarn is in this little crevice, so that's good. Then we're going to slide our left needle down the right, over the tip, and down the back, forcing the feeder yarn through this loop. So let's do that now. Keep your needles always touching. Slide your left needle down the right, over the tip and down the back, forcing the feeder yarn through the loop, creating a new stitch, and we just have to transfer this stitch over to the left stitch by taking your left needle and putting it through this stitch here and lifting it off the right. So now we have 3 stitches on this needle. Let's do this one more time with you guys. So stick your needle into the new stitch. You want to get into your knit stitch position, so X your needles. You want your right needle in the back, left needle in the front, feeder yarn in the back. Always touching your needles. You want to wrap your yarn around your right needle from counterclockwise back to forward and down. You're going to feel or hear it snap, getting into this little crevice here. Then we're going to slide our left needle down the right, over the tip, and down the back, forcing the feeder yarn through this loop. So let's do that now. Always keep contact with your needles. Slide the left down the right, over the tip, down its back, creating a new stitch on the right needle. Then we just have to transfer this stitch over to the left needle by taking your left needle, putting it through that stitch and lifting it off the right needle. So now we have 4 stitches. Now you guys, I'm just going to go on ahead and complete the remaining stitches that we need on this left needle. You can go ahead and rewind this part as many times as you need until you're comfortable to do these on your own. All right. So once we have the number of stitches on the left needle, we can move on to the next row. But here's a few tips. So when we're doing this, you saw me kind of adjust this. So sometimes when we're doing this, you get like a little twist in here. It could be like this. It could be, you know, it could be anything because we're holding it and we're not really paying attention. But what you want to do is you want to make sure these are straight. You want everything to be in a straight row. So when we flip it on its bottom side, all you see is a straight line. All right, you're going to want to keep your feeder yarn down and back. If we kept it up by accident, you can tell that it's not right because your stitches will start to bend upward. So what we do, straighten this out. Your feeder yarn's going to want you to go back down and back, and that's exactly what you want. And you want to make sure you pay attention to this. Every time that we do something in knitting, you want your project to grow down, never up. Okay. So let's go on to the next row. For the next row, we're doing knit stitches. Knit stitches are the makeup of all these itty bitty knit kits, which is wonderful because once you learn how to do this stitch, you can use it for any of these kits moving forward. On top of being able to do the knit stitch if you do any other kit from another company. So anyway, take your right needle. We're going to put this on the first stitch here, and we're going to get into our knit stitch position. So right needle in the back, left needle on top. You want to keep your needles constantly touching, and we want the feeder yarn in the back. So from here, we're going to go wrap around the right needle counterclockwise from back to forward and down. You're going to feel her here at snap. Get it into that crevice. And then from here, constantly touching the needles, we're going to slide down the left, over the point, and down the back. Let's do that now. And it's going to create a new stitch on the right. Now, when we're doing rows from here on out, you always have to start with stitches on your left, and we're just transferring it to the right by creating these stitches. So whatever number of stitches you have on your left side, you're going to end up with the same number of stitches on your right side. So the fact that we added one to our right means that we have to lose a stitch on our left. So what you want to do is push up carefully your stitches. We're going to remove the first stitch, the one that we actually used to create this. So just slip it off like that. So now we gained a stitch here, we minused a stitch here. Let's do this again. Stick your hook into the next stitch, get into your knit stitch position, right needle in the back, left needle on top, feeder in the back. We're going to wrap around the right needle counterclockwise from back to forward and down. You're going to feel her here at snap because we are always touching our needles. We have this in the crevice here. So we're going to now slide our left needle down our right needle over the point and down the back, creating a new stitch on our right, as you see here. So now that we've gained another stitch here on the right, we have to lose another stitch on the left. So carefully push up your stitches on the left needle, and we're just going to flick off this first one here. Alright, so now we have +2 on the right, -2 on the left. Let's do one more time with you guys. Stick your needle into the next stitch, get into your knit stitch position, right needle on the back, left needle on top, feeder yarn in the back. We're going to wrap around the right needle counterclockwise from back to forward and down. You're going to feel her here at snap. because we're constantly maintaining contact with the needles, and you want to get this yarn in that crevice right there. We're going to slide the left needle down the right needle over the tip and down its back, creating a new stitch on the right needle. So now that we've gained a stitch on the right, we have to lose a stitch on the left. So carefully push up your stitches and then flick off this first stitch here that we just used. Alright, so now we have plus 3 stitches on the right, minus 3 stitches on the left. So from here on out, you're basically just going to go down the line until there's no more stitches on your left needle. Alright, so now that we've completed this row, like I said, you always want to start with stitches on the left needle. Well, we don't have any more, so what do we do next? We're just going to switch our needles. So take the left needle, move it over to the right, and take your right needle, and we're going to flip it over to the left. And while we're here, we're going to make sure that this is all in a straight line. I can tell that it's not because look how the project is curving up. What you want to do is just make sure these stitches are all in a straight line like this. And then your feeder yarn's going to want you to go down now. So down and back. Your tail end should be pushed down to the bottom here. So we have stitches again on the left needle. And then we're going to pick up our right needle. So from here, we're going to do the same thing. Just knit stitches all the way down and repeat. So I'm going to do the next, let's see, we just did the second row. Alright, so we're going to do one more of the mint and then we're going to switch to the pink actually. So let's do this. I like how this time it says after you cast on the stitches it counts as row 1, because sometimes it doesn't say that and it's very confusing as to what row you're on. But okay, so let's do our knit stitches. Actually says it 3 more after the first one, so this will be the second, and then we're going to do this one more time before we change to pink. So I went down the line, we're going to flip the needle, make sure our project is growing downward, then we're going to continue doing another row of knit stitches. Alright, so now the problem with this kit is that it tells you the number of rows that you need to make each color section, but it also gives you in inches how long the rectangle needs to be. So the problem, like I said, with this is that this is the number of rows you're needed for the mint. Now, looking at the rectangle, looking at the measurement in inches, what it's supposed to be, if we kept going the number of rows it tells you to do, it's gonna be too short. It's not gonna make that rectangle the length that it's supposed to be. So I always say this in every video with these kits, it's better to go by the inches than to go by the rows, because at the end of the day you're going to have to sew this cup together, and you want the proportions to be the same as in the booklet. Otherwise, you're going to look at this and you're going to be like, what the heck just happened? So what I'm going to do is I am going to add 4 more extra rows to each section. And I know this because I already had edited a whole chunk of doing, I actually for the first time went by the booklet because there's so many different stripes and it did not measure, it was too short. It did not measure what it needed to be. So I'm going to go ahead and add 4 more rows to each color section, and you can do the same. I'm going to pop in when we change to pink. And this is the last row for the mint, but before I do the last stitch, I'm going to show you how I do my transition to the pink. So when you get to the last row of your color section here, stop at the last stitch. Oh, almost did it. Okay. All right, so get your pink. I have it out here. Take some feeder yarn out. What we're going to do is cast on with a slip knot. So take your ring, pinky, and thumb and hold one end. It doesn't need a tail. Then we're going to take our index and middle finger and hold it apart. Then we're going to take our 2 fingers, push up, and then we're going to turn it down to create this little loop. Then take your middle finger and index and grab that feeder yarn and pull it through that loop. So now we have this huge knot here. What we want to do is pull this top part, not the part with the feeder yarn, but this top part here. As I'm pulling that, I want to push that knot towards the thumb. It's going to get smaller. You just keep pushing until you can't push anymore. Then you take your thumb and index and just pull this excess piece a little bit to make that knot nice and snug. So now I'm just going to hold on to the knot, and we're going to make this loop a little bit more manageable by pulling on the feeder yarn. So pull on this until you can fit a needle into this loop. Okay, but we're going to set this aside for now. Pick up your project. What we're going to do is you're going to stick your right needle into the left stitch here. We're going to grab the pink and slip it onto the needle. You can tighten up the loop a little bit if you need. Then we're going to do what we do, just a knit stitch using the pink. sorry, also wrap around with the what is this, mint, back to forward. So we got both on here, and then we're gonna create our knit stitch like we normally do. And it tells you to cut it. We're not going to cut it because we're just going to float this up through the project so we don't waste any yarn. So, but we are going to pick up the pink, and we're going to do the whole row now with pink. And like I said, it gives you the number of rows that you have to do with the pink. I just added 4 more. So, but we're going to put our needle through the pink and the mint for the first stitch here. Okay, get into our knit stitch position, and then we're only going to wrap around with just the pink, back to forward and down, and we're going to slide the left down the right over the point down its back, creating a new stitch. We're going to slip off both the mint and the pink. And then we're just going to pull this mint a little bit so that it's not too loose of a loop, and it kind of tightens it around the stitch, making it, you know, a little bit more neater. But again, now we can move on to the next stitches with just the pink. So we're trailing the pink and the mint down this one side. So for that one side, we're going to be wrapping around with both pink and mint. I know it's a bit confusing, but you can watch me do this section in explanation. Right, so now we're going to just turn, and we're going to continue on with the next row. Okay, approaching the last stitch, we're going to stick our needle into the last stitch, and then we're going to use both mint and pink to wrap around the right needle and create that new stitch. And then we're going to turn, and we're only going to use the pink. But let me gather up some feeder yarn first here. Okay, using just the pink, put your needle through the pink and the mint, stitch on your left needle, get into your knit stitch position, and we're going to wrap with just the pink and create that new stitch. And then we're going to do the rest with just pink. You can pull on this mint just to make the loop a lot cleaner. But yes, moving along. Last stitch, we're going to wrap around both mint and pink. But then we're going to do this next row with just pink. first I'm going to stick the needle in both the mint and the pink, get into my knit stitch position, and just wrap with the pink. And pull on the green mint. Tighten that up a little bit. Gather up some more feeder yarn here. Last stitch, we're going to wrap the pink and the mint. Then we're going to drop the mint and then just use the pink. But we're going to go through both the mint and the pink stitch. Then we're going to tighten the mint a little bit. Last one. I'm going to wrap both the mint and the pink. Alright, so this is where I'm going to add the 4 more. And this here we're going to just use the pink. Tighten this up. Last one, wrap with the mint and the pink. And then we're just going to use the pink. Tighten up the mint. Oh, last one. I'm gonna wrap the mint and the pink. But this time we are changing to green, so we'll be dropping the pink. So let me just gather up some feeder yarn. So you pretty much get the gist of what we're trying to do here. Like I said, I added 4 more rows per color section, and I'm trailing the colors down the side of the project here. So when we sew it, we can hide that so you won't see it. But I'm going to do the rest in silence, and we're going to come back in. When you get to the last color section, don't do the last row. We're going to cast off, and that is counted as the last row. Alright, so last of the pink, we're going to tie this off, but we have one last stitch left to go. Where am I? Okay, so take both mint and pink. We're going to do this last one here. Right, and then we're going to drop the pink. So first let's just do the green. Go in here and just do the green. 'Cause that way I can tighten up this pink a little bit. Alright, so from here we're going to cut the pink off. And you want to cut about 1 inch or so. And we're going to double knot it around the mint. Don't go too tight, just enough to secure the pink so you don't lose any stitches. Alright, and then, uh-oh, this fell out. Okay, then we're going to continue on with just the mint. And then again, we're going to do the number of rows that it tells you, and I just added 4 more, but I'm only going to do 3 more, and the last one we're going to do a cast off because that's going to count as 1 row. All right, for this last row, we are going to cast off. And how it works is you always have to have 2 stitches on your right needle. So let's do 2 stitches. And then from here, we're going to leapfrog this stitch over this stitch, and then we're going to remove it off the needle altogether. So pick up this stitch here. We're going to leapfrog it over this one. You can hold it down with your thumb so you don't lose it, but we're going to pull this stitch off the right needle altogether. So we're left with this 1 stitch. So like I said, we always have to have 2 stitches on our right needle, so let's knit another stitch. All right, then we're going to pick up this stitch here. We're going to leapfrog it over this one. You can hold it down with your thumb, but we're going to remove this stitch off the right needle altogether and off the left. So we're left with 1 stitch again. Let's one more time with you guys. Let's do another knit stitch. So you have 2 stitches on our right needle. We're going to pick this stitch up and leapfrog it over the next. Hold that one down so that you can pull this one off the right and then off the left. Then you're left with 1 stitch again. So we're going to continue doing this until all the stitches are off the left needle, and then I'll show you how to finish it off. Okay, so now that we're left with 1 stitch, what do? Well, we're going to have to sew these together, and it doesn't tell you how much yarn you're going to need. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to generously go around the area that I have to sew, and I'm going to go around twice. Okay, so that I know that I have enough yarn to work with. All right, then I'm gonna cut this off. So what we're gonna do is yarn over, and we're going to leapfrog this last stitch over the yarn over, off the right needle, off the left. Then we're going to pull this right needle all the way out till we get that yarn all the way out. And then you can tighten it up right here. So we're done with this. And you can tell that this is the wrong end because you can see all the imperfections here. If you flip it over, you can see that this is the good side because the color sections are nice and clean. Now I realize that we have the tail that's used to sew this, so who knows, maybe we won't need this, maybe we will. If not, I just wasted a bunch of yarn. But all right, so we do have another mint rectangle, but I think on camera let's do a white. So I'll just do the other rectangles off camera, but I'm going to do the third rectangle with you so that I can show you again how to cast off. I think the next one would be a little too small to show how to do the casting off, so I think it's worth just doing a bigger one with you guys. So like we did before, you just gotta find your way through this spooling that they that they did here. I'm going to split this in half. Okay. Gather up some yarn, and then I'm going to show you how to cast on using a slip knot. So, first off camera, I'm going to measure the tail, and I'll be back. Alright, so I have the feeder yarn, keep it up here. We have the tail, we're going to keep this down here. We're going to cast on with the slip knot, so hold on to this real tight. Take your middle and ring finger and hold the yarn apart. Take your 2 fingers and lift it up, turn it down. Then you're going to take your middle finger and your index, grab the feeder yarn and pull it through that loop. Right, so now we're going to pull this top end, not the one with the feeder yarn, but the top end, and we're going to push this knot towards your thumb. Okay, we're going to try to eliminate the amount of waste of yarn. And then pull out the yarn, the tail end, to tighten up that knot. And then I'm going to hold the knot, and we're going to make this loop more manageable by pulling on the feeder yarn until we can fit 2 needles in here. Slip your needles in. You can tighten up the loop a little bit more. Gather up the feeder yarn. And let's cast on some stitches. So we are going to cast on the number of stitches that the instructions require. So this is pretty much straightforward. These are the things that we did with the first rectangle. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of this. Like I said, they do give you a number of rows to work with, but measure the rectangle as well, because it's preferable to make your rectangle the length in inches that the instructions require you to have, so that when we're sewing everything together, it's going to proportionately be correct. Right, and like I said, every time you finish a row, make sure that the line is completely straight across. Okay, so I'm going to continue the rest of this in silence, and I will come back in and we'll cast off again one more time. All right, I'm on my last row, and it looks like we pretty much doubled the number of rows. So let me show you how to cast off. We're going to do 2 knit stitches, and then we're going to leapfrog this stitch over the next, and hold it down with your thumb there. We're going to slip it off the right and slip it off the left. Then let's do another knit stitch. Again, pick up this stitch here. We're going to leapfrog it over the next. Hold that one down with your thumb. We're going to remove this off the right and then off the left. One more time with you guys. Let's do another knit stitch. We're going to pick this one and leapfrog it over the next. Hold this down with your thumb. Remove it off the right and remove it off the left. So just continue this all the way down until you're there's no more stitches on the left needle. And then I'll show you how to deal with that. All right, so this time let's not check the perimeter. We have the tail. Forgot about that in the other square, but cut about 1 inch or so. We're going to yarn over, and we're going to leapfrog this stitch over the yarn over, off the right needle, off the left needle, then pull the right needle all the way out, tighten up the knot, and we have our first white square. All right, so I'm going to do the remaining 4 squares off camera, and we're going to come back in, and we are going to be doing we're going to be assembling the whole thing. All right, so I have all my rectangles made. And now we're going to sew everything together. I do have pink left over. All right. So I'm just going to pull out my sewing needle. And we are going to thread up the tail end that we started with on this one. See how far that gets us. But what you want to do is we're going to fold this in half, and we're going to put the nicer side on the inside because we're going to flip this inside out. So you should see the extra striping on here. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to sew a little U. I feel like this isn't going to make it, but we'll see. I'm sewing along the edge, and this is a good time to hide all the excess pieces that we have here. You want to keep them on the wrong side of your project, so have them stick outward. Okay. And just as I pass the pink section here, I'm now going to start to taper the end, and I'm going to go in and out this time. You know what, this probably won't make it to the other side, so I'm actually going to use the yarn that I had cut off. But I am just going to trail this back up here. And then I'm going to find my moment to tie a knot. And then I'm going to grab this other end. Now we do have to leave this side open to stuff. So I'm going to weave this one in and out of one side, just the one side. Okay. Now I want some slack as this opening gets wider, so just stretch out this end here so that your tail can fill out those spaces. And now I'm going to sew this side together. And don't pull too tightly at first, because you don't want to pull on the side that we stretched out. Again, as I pass the pink section, I'm going to taper this down. And then we're just going to go back up so we have some yarn to sew the opening. All right. So now we're going to turn this inside out. And then we're going to fill this with the stuffing. All right, so now we got to put this large white rectangular piece, and we're going to sew this. Let's see. I think we have enough green to just use the green. I don't want to use the white because it's going to stick out on the outside and then you're going to be able to see it. So let's just tuck this in here. How do they have this? All right, and it looks like they want you to I don't have enough yarn, so you're supposed to braid the yarn and it's gonna come up from the center. So what I'm gonna do actually is it says the back of the ornament too, but let's see. I'm just going to borrow this needle. I'm going to weave this to get to the center, and you want to come out on the prettier side. Okay. And we're just going to figure it out because I don't have enough yarn, I don't think, to make, well, let's see. I don't have enough to make the braid. I would take this opportunity to, yeah, let's take this opportunity to do what we can on here first, because it's going to be a nightmare trying to tie knots and everything if this is all attached. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make a loop, a couple of loops around this thing. But wait a minute, maybe I can do this better. Let me see. I'm going to go around. Oops. I'm going to twist my way around the loop. That, so it's not perfect, but at least it has some strength to it. And then I'm going to take my moment here to tie my knot. Okay, so we have our loop, and then I'm going to do these marshmallows. get these out of the way because we have to sew them on top anyway. So again, might as well do everything where you can so you're not struggling later. But you want the prettier side. And you can kind of tell near the tail, there's this like weird looking row. On the other side, it doesn't look that bad. So this side to me would be the prettier side. And we're basically going around in a circle. Okay, once you've gone all the way around, then we're going to pull it, make sure the prettier side shows, and you want to pull it to where it starts kind of forming these little marshmallows. Okay. Cute. And then we're going to sew them into the lid. So just pick where you want to place them. Okay, and once you've gone all the way around, on the underside, you can find your moment to tie your knot. And because this is the underside, you can just remove this and tuck that in. Now I'm just going to do the other two marshmallows off camera. Alright, so I have the marshmallows in place. We are going to sew this on top, and we just have to make sure that we sew in a circle. But for now, let's also take the opportunity of this openness to sew the handle. And so with the remaining yarn, I just left it. So we actually have two tails, which is going to work great. If you don't have two tails and you only have one, you just have to weave in and out of this strip to get to the other side, but we're going to sew both sides to the cup. Now what it says to do is to curl it. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to sew this end here. And I'm just going to weave it. I mean, I'm not a sewer, so if you have a better way of doing this, then by all means do it. Okay. Then it kind of bends over like this, and we're going to do something like that. But for now, let us tie a knot because we're done with this end. Again, if you didn't have two tails, I would weave in and out of this strip. To get to the other side. But since I have two ends, I'm just going to tie this around this one here. Double knot, not too tight, just enough to secure the handle. And then you can tuck this inside. Then I'm going to take the other end. Alright, I'm going to weave in and out of this to get maybe a few rows higher. Okay, and then we're just going to sew this side here. And I'm gonna come up on the inside. I'm gonna tie a knot around this one here again. Double knot, not too tight. All right, tuck that in. Now we can sew the marshmallow top to the cup. So what you want to do is push this in here, and you want to tuck in the corners, and we're going to try to sew around to keep the round shape. Okay. And I'm kind of sewing around a couple rows down so that there's a lip of cup. Gives it a more teacup look. Okay, and then once you're all the way around, I will find my moment to tie a knot. And then I'm gonna stick my needle in one end, come out randomly on the other end, cut this flush to the surface, and then we can squeeze this a bit to make that end disappear. And I can take this time to also shape my teacup. Okay. And now on to the last bits. Okay. So we're going to put the face on. You want to pick the side that looks best. So here's one side. Here's the other. I mean, maybe this side. Okay. So just take your, I start with the mouth just so I can place the center. Okay. And we're going to put it just about here. You want to hold this down for a few seconds to make sure that there is a stick to most of the adhesive on this felt sticker. And then we're going to place the eyes. Place these, hold that down as well a few seconds. Make sure you get all that surface to stick onto something. Let's do the other eye. Place this as even as we can possibly get it. Okay, and then last bits are the mocha drips. And there's two here. But they only show one. So you can possibly save the other one for if you make a copy. I'm gonna save it. But this one is where you would put right above here on the edge of the teacup. Push that down. All right, so here you have it. My little teacup. So comment below, let me know how it went for you. I know I did it a little different, but I think I did it to where it's just easier, because we did a lot of sewing before we topped off the teacup, so it was easy to get in there. Once we had this on, if we did everything afterwards, obviously it's still doable, but it would have been a little more difficult to just sew and tie knots and get all in there. This one we didn't braid, but I did a little twisty, and it still holds. It's not like it's holding anything super strong or heavy, so you don't need to have a braid there. But yeah, not too bad, pretty cute. Okay, so you guys, I am going to be doing Mr. Ginger and Sweet Stocking next. I am going to take a little, I'm going to try to fit in another 5 below. It's a crochet pouch. And then we're going to go back right into the Grinch kits. And by then, I'll definitely have those other winter kits for you. So we'll do that after. At any rate, thank you so much, you guys, for watching. This is Hooked on Needles and Crafts. Please share, like, and subscribe for future videos, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks. Bye.